Gareth Bale picked up the Football Writers Association Footballer of the Year award alongside the PFA and the Young Player of the Year awards, all in his final season in English football. Just how good was he that year?
Oh, he was spectacular that year because don't forget, Spurs actually, I think that year finished outside the top four. I think they finished fifth. And in a way, that almost sealed his departure to Real Madrid that summer. But he won it because basically because he was spectacular, because of his penchant for the spectacular goals he scored, the pace he showed, and he was emerging then as clearly a world-class talent. And I think there's probably an element that we all knew that Bale would be going at the end of that season. It was funny, at the dinner itself, I was sat next to Gareth and I asked him about Madrid, and he was very coy about it. And actually at the time, we had a little bit of a spell, really, where footballers of the year generally move clubs. Robin van Persie, I think, was the previous year for Arsenal, and he immediately moved to Manchester United. The previous year, Scott Parker won it, and he went to Spurs. He didn't actually go straight to Spurs. I think he played one game for West Ham in the Championship. Anyway, I digress. But Bale had been fantastic, and I think maybe the writers knew that we might be seeing the last of him for a while in the Premier League, and wanted to make sure that he was rewarded. As in a lot of cases, it doesn't necessarily mean that because you don't win a trophy with your team that you're exempt from winning Football of the Year. As we all know, there's many, many instances of that where we actually just take into account individual brilliance. And that's what he brought to English football. And that was the last time we saw him in 2013. You know, it's amazing to think that if you would have said to me, the young man that I was speaking to that I thought would be going to Real Madrid would still be there in 7 years' time, probably only just there, I wouldn't have put money on that.
So we're talking about his time at Real Madrid. He's gone on to win 4 Champions Leagues and 2 La Liga titles. Yes. Is he the best British player to have ever played abroad?
I think you would have to say that. Listen, to survive as a British player or a foreign player, to survive as a foreign player at the Bernabeu for 7 years is a remarkable achievement in itself. You know, you see how they chew up and spit out big money signings. Not only has he won 4 Champions League trophies, not only does he have 4 Champions League winners' medals, he's produced match-winning moments in crucial games. None more so than, for me, having been there, was one of the most jaw-dropping moments that I've seen in the Champions League final, which was the overhead kick against Liverpool. And for that reason, you think of other exports, going way back to John Charles in Italy, and people have made significant contributions, but I don't think anyone's had the success over such a sustained period as he has, which is why it's a shame that it's come to this at the moment, which is why it's a shame that his time at Madrid should be remembered for those 4 Champions League medals, for those 2 La Liga medals, for some incredible goals. Who can forget the one where he runs off the pitch and comes back on? And it should be remembered for all that. But at the moment, the nature of the business is that we're getting to the stage now where we're remembering him at the moment for the last year or so, when his well-touted wages have been earned without playing much football. And that's such a sad thing for a guy of that world-class talent not to be playing any football.
You also mentioned John Charles there. So, I mean, he's one of the Welsh greats, along with Ryan Giggs and 2 previous winners of this award, Ian Rush and Neville Southall. And there's been plenty of other great Welsh footballers. But where does Bale rank amongst his fellow Welshmen?
Well, again, for what he's, I guess if you'd say that, I think what would probably tip, if you had to have a sort of a poll on who out of those names you mentioned, if you had to put them in some sort of ascendancy, you would have to say that, what would tip it probably in Bale's favour is the fact that what he's done for the national team. I'm not saying the others didn't contribute to the national team, but Bale has been has almost been, I don't think anyone in maybe the history of the Welsh team has been as committed, as what's the word I'm looking for, as emblematic of what that Welsh team's all about. He really is. You just see how much he loves it, how much it energizes him playing for his country, how much he takes responsibility. He took the responsibility when he took them to the European Championships. He in an era where you see so many players, or you have seen so many players, maybe not be as committed to their international roles as they should be. You can never say that about Gareth Bale, and that's maybe why he comes out on top.
And when Gareth won the award, do you remember telling him or speaking to him after he had won it, and what his reaction was to being elected Footballer of the Year?
Yeah, well, I spoke to him. Obviously, the way it works is I did speak to him to tell him, and then of course the chairman of the Football Rights Association basically, sits next to the Football of the Year and guides him through the whole event, the whole function. And bear in mind, he was obviously he would have then been, top of my head, 24, I think, maybe 23, 24. And he was a shy lad, he really was. He was quite a shy individual, and he was extremely honoured. Again, it's only when they look down the roll call of previous winners that they know what a prestigious honour it is. We're in an era where there are many awards, but it remains such a prestigious honour. And if they don't, and if Gareth didn't, then certainly everyone in his club, who have been fantastic supporters of the Football Rights Association Football of the Year award, Tottenham Hotspur, they made sure he did.
Jack, we are talking in September 2020, and in your role with The Athletic covering Tottenham, I imagine you've been very busy writing and talking about Gareth Bale.
Yeah, it's been like the most exciting. It's been the most exciting Tottenham story, probably since they appointed Mourinho a year ago. It's kind of not a complete surprise, because I think some people saw it coming, or some people had a sense that Spurs were trying to do that. And that Levy had sensed the opportunity to sign Bale from Real Madrid on loan. But it's still amazing to see it happen, because we know that Levy's tried to do this in the past. He hadn't managed to get Bale into the door. This time he has. And I guess the proof will be on the pitch. It is a shame. It does, like a lot of stuff, it does make me sad that fans can't go to games, just because I think it'd be really cool to be at the game where Bale comes back and he's never played in that stadium before. Be 60,000 Spurs fans, really excited to see him and everything. But, obviously we are where we are with that. But on the pitch, at least, yeah, it's really exciting.
Gareth obviously won the Footballer of the Year award in his first spell at Tottenham. And what was it about him that made him such a special player and led to the Real Madrid move?
Yeah, so I have incredibly fond memories of that 2012-13 season. So that was one of my sort of the start of my time covering Tottenham, more or less. So I was working for the Independent then. I covered a lot of games that season, and Bale was just phenomenal. I've never seen an individual season of football as good as that, I think, from anyone. It was the different types of goals that he scored. I know he's famous for these ones where he just smashes it in from 30 yards. The West Ham one is classic. But there were some other ones as well. There was some right foot. There was running in behind. There was using his pace, running past people. All sorts of different. So there was the range of things he could do. Also, there was just the decisiveness, the number of winners, the number of last-minute goals. It was almost every game seemed to turn completely on what he did, and that's what made it so exciting to me, is that it had this kind of comic book quality to it, because it was just one superstar player doing totally implausible things, like in ever more like dramatic circumstances. Like there'll be an 85th minute winner one week, then there'll be an 87th minute winner, then there'll be an 89th minute winner. And like I'm not even like exaggerating. Like it's all on soccer base. And he, like this one brilliant player doing like implausibly brilliant things to win the game for Spurs every single week, and then the next week he'd do it again, the next week he'd do it again, and it was like Roy the Rovers, or it was like having it was like a film, and that's what made it so good. And even looking back, because I was thinking about this when I was thinking about like how I feel about Bale coming back, is I do feel like that was generally a more exciting era in the Premier League, in the sense that the Premier League was more individualistic then. Like nowadays, the best teams, so obviously City and Liverpool on a sort of view over the last 3 years, like they're incredible. I don't think any team has ever been as good as City and Liverpool have been in the last few years. But they play an incredibly like coordinated, mechanical, organised game in which even the best players are just cogs in the system who know the manager's playbook and know how to interpret what to do, and they carry out the manager's instructions. So like Kevin De Bruyne and Sadio Mane, like obviously the two best players in the country, but they're good in as much what they're so good at is doing what the manager tells them to do, basically. Whereas 10 years ago, give or take, that was when you'd had players who would be like teams wouldn't be as coordinated as they are now, and so there'd be a lot more freedom of expression, and teams would be a bit more like, give the ball to our best player, watch him win the game. So I'm thinking like Ronaldo at United, Rooney at United, Bale at Tottenham, Suarez at Liverpool, Van Persie at Arsenal, then at United. Like it was just a different era. Tevez, frankly, at City, at United and at City. Aguero maybe to a lesser extent, although he's slightly different. It was just like a more individualistic era. And while the football I think is better now, and the football can be really exciting. Like I don't want to sound like I don't think watching Liverpool or City is great, but there's something about seeing like a phenomenal player do ridiculous stuff by himself to win a game without the help of his teammates, which really, it just kind of brings out the sort of 9-year-old in you. You know what I mean? You're like, that's why I like football. That's why I like football, because Gareth Bale is scoring these insane goals. And yeah, it was just a great time to watch football, basically. And it's I've got no idea how good Bale's going to be at Tottenham this season or next season if he stays. But it almost doesn't matter just because the memories themselves are so good.